So this is a heavy video. In this video, I want to talk about the compassion of brutality. And those terms may offhand sound diametrically opposed, but I'm going to explain to you why they're not. And I'm going to come at this from a few different angles. Number one is going to be protecting the ones you love. Number two is going to be protecting yourself. Number three is going to be protecting people in the service of others. One of them is going to be protecting even the person who you are fighting. So let's go ahead and talk about that first one. When I first got into martial arts, in the last few years, it was for a very specific reason. I had gotten out of martial arts. I'd taken some stuff when I was a teenager that I really loved. I got out of it because I injured my finger at one point, and I realized that my hobby, a very serious hobby of being a musician, songwriter, could be threatened by that kind of injury. And I also am a craftsman, and I realized that those two things are very important to have working fingers and hands that function properly. And doing martial arts is one great way to injure your fingers and your hands. So I decided, well, if I got to give up one of these things that I really like, I think it's going to be martial arts. Well, then 2015 rolled around. I am queer. My partner was queer at the time. The partner I was dating at the time was queer. And, things got a lot scarier in the world for folks like me and, in general, folks that don't have the cool ability to pass like I do as a cis white dude with a beard. And, depending on how you feel about politics, I don't really care. That's the facts. There were a lot of hate crimes that spiked during that time. There were a lot of really scary things being talked about in political discourse. And I took a look at that and I thought, well, maybe it's about time to go back into martial arts. And I started looking around at different styles. Initially, I was thinking of going back to the sporting styles I had taken as a teen. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, I have this partner who's tiny and bright colored hair and very obviously, not as passing as I am. And what would I do to protect them? What would I do to protect the ones that I care about, the ones that I love, if they are being hurt or threatened or, something bad was going to happen to them? And I had to answer honestly, and I thought about it, and I was just like, I would kill for the people that I care about. If someone were trying to hurt my partner, I am going to do whatever it takes to get that person to leave them alone. And that means getting them on the ground. If I can get them on the ground with little injury, I'll do it. But if I have to get them on the ground with a lot of injury or put them in the morgue, I'm going to do that too. I'm going to make sure that my partner is safe. I'm going to have the compassion to be the one in the group, in my relationship, who's going to take the responsibility to be the one who trains to be the protector. And I'm going to be the one who thinks about that unpleasant thought. So in that way, there's a compassion. I'm taking, I would love it if everybody that I dated would take a martial art or buy a weapon or figure out some way to protect themselves. But if you're into this, talking to people, you talk about people in martial arts, their eyes glaze over sometimes. You talk to people about guns, their eyes glaze over. Same thing about any self-defense stuff. Some people just don't like thinking about this stuff, and some people just don't care. Some people focus on other stuff, and you know what? It's okay. It's okay because you're there. You're going to be the one to protect them. You're going to be the one that's there when you're out walking home from a concert. You're going to be the one that's there when you're walking home from the bar. You're going to be the one that's, there walking to the store with them. And, you don't have to make a big deal out of it. You're not like a white knight. You're not like there's nothing noble in this necessarily. You're making a sacrifice of being somebody that has to think about something that's kind of unpleasant and being the one who has to really reflect on the ramifications of that for the sake of people who you care about. And isn't that a small sacrifice? Isn't that just a wonderful gift that you can give somebody? Isn't that a wonderful way that you can not only keep them safe, but also, I don't know, if that partner that I'm thinking about was just a wonderful person, and I don't know that I'd want them, poisoning their mind with this kind of stuff. Just, some food for thought. The next thing that I wanted to talk about was that compassion for yourself, which, may have sounded like I just kind of argued against in that case. But let me kind of go into some stuff here. When you are a person who is othered, you're a person in school who gets picked on, you're a person who has something about you that society sees as a bump that needs to be rolled down flat, you are likely going to be somebody who encounters some violence occasionally directed at you. Learning that as a fact of life, accepting it, is going to be a very kind thing to do for yourself. Learning how to defend yourself is equally kind, because rather than going out into the world and being afraid of these things, I want to be able to go out into the world confidently and be myself, and to have that freedom of expression to live my life the way that I want to do it, unapologetically. And you know what? If somebody decides that I need to be rolled flat, they're going to have a hard time doing it, because I'm turning myself into a hard target. So, in that way, I'm kind of showing compassion to myself, because I'm giving myself this very important tool, not only mentally, in that I know that there are people out there that are going to do this, I know what that's going to be like, but also I know what my response is going to be if things get to the point where I feel like I need to defend myself. Now, are you training to be some cool Shaolin monk? No, you're not. You're not invincible. And you have to face the fact that if it does come down to that, you may end up in the hospital too. There's scary stuff out there. There's scary people out there. But you know what? In a lot of cases, and from my personal experience, it doesn't take much to send bullies going. Usually people pick on you because they see you as a weak target. If they learn that you're LGBT, for example, there's a lot of associations there with weakness and with, femininity, which they see as a weakness. And oftentimes they will expect that they're going to, punch you and you're going to fall down on the floor, and then they're just going to start kicking you while you're in the fetal position. That's their expectation. If they come in for a punch, even if you get hit, if you can take that hit and then you can deliver something really back that's very brutal, jab to the eye, hit in the throat, whatever, not only do they see that, but their friends see that. Their friends see that you're somebody who doesn't mind fucking hurting them, doesn't mind putting them in the hospital, and will. And a lot of times at that point, people don't want to fuck with you. People are shitty. They like to pick on people who they think that they can get away with doing that to. Don't be that person. Give yourself the strength to stand up in those situations. Give yourself the strength that gives you the confidence to walk around, be unapologetically you. Have the compassion for yourself to not live in fear. That's that second point. That third point, defending others. I've been in situations where, I haven't been the one threatened, but there's been somebody else there acting threatening. I'll go into one of these situations, actually, because this is one in which I was in a position where Wing Chun would have been the thing that I turned to. I was on a bus, and public transit is terrible. Highly recommend just taking martial arts in general, close quarters stuff, if you're going to be taking public transportation, because probably about half of the instances in which I have ended up feeling like I might have to use this stuff, it's been on a fucking bus. Not even exaggerating. Anyway, I'm sitting there with my partner, and a few seats up ahead of us, there's a nanny. At least that's what I took her to be. It seemed like the situation from what I had observed. And a little girl who couldn't have been a day over 9 years old. There's a woman sitting across from them, a large woman, who is, bigger than me, taller than me, bigger than me. And she is being threatening to this nanny, like right in front of this little girl. And I can't remember exactly what the context was, but there was a clear aggressor in the situation, and it was the person doing the threatening, and there was a clear person who was at risk. This nanny did not have the ability, really, to fully defend herself, because she's worrying about that little kid. She's worrying about the person who she's taking care of, understandably. So not only is she trying to de-escalate that situation, which isn't working in this case, but she is in a position where she has kind of a handicap. Whatever she's doing with this person in front of her, she's got to be paying very close attention to what's happening over here. Because somebody may use that as an opportunity to do something to her or take her or whatever. There are responsibilities there. There's divided attention. Now, I saw this, and after this had progressed for a minute or two, and things seemed to be heating up to the point that things weren't going to go back down again, I simply stood up, and I walked directly up to that part of the bus, very confidently, upright, look on my face, just very serious as hell. And I just grabbed onto the bar there, so my hand was close in, so that I had a cover, and I put my other hand up here like this, so I could basically come out into whatever I needed to come out to. And I just stared at that woman who was threatening that nanny and her little girl. I just stared at them. I stared at her, and she stared at me. And you know what happened? She shut the fuck up. She shut the fuck up. The rest of that ride was silent until she got off, and nothing happened. Now, why did I do that? Because I knew that this person over here couldn't really do what I was doing. I knew that this person over here wouldn't get the response that I got, because in a lot of cases where I have done this kind of thing, usually it's in defense of somebody who is seen as weaker, somebody who is smaller, somebody who is a woman, somebody who is trans, somebody who has something about them that somebody might perceive as a weakening feature that allows them to be attacked and to not worry about them fighting back. Well, now I'm there. They're going to have to go through me. That's a situation in which protecting somebody else does come up as an issue of compassion. I can't stand violence towards kids. I can't. I don't want kids to see violence. I don't want kids to be fucking exposed to it. I definitely don't want them to be targeted by it. I don't want to see a situation in which this nanny starts getting beat up by this fucking terrible person, and me being somebody who could have gotten up and prevented it and did nothing. I've had a number of instances like that on public transit, a handful. It's happened. And in each case, it's gone about the same, where it's somebody who is identified as weaker, gets picked on by somebody, things escalate, it looks like it's going to turn to violence, and I step in. It does two things. It gives them, for one thing, it breaks the rhythm. You understand that violent situations and escalations have a rhythm to them. There's a beat. It's almost like music. Somebody will say something, somebody says something else, somebody says something else, and you can feel that drum beat going. If I come in there, it's like bam, it's like just this out of key orchestra strike. Just all of a sudden there's this new thing introduced to the situation. It breaks the rhythm. It also divides their attention, because while they're focusing on this person who they were targeting initially, now they got this other person who's standing there and obviously going to do something about it. their attention is divided. It also puts safety in numbers. So if somebody's acting inappropriately, if somebody's doing something like that where, they feel like they've got the upper hand, they're the big guy in the situation, and they're going after the little guy in that situation, they may think like they can take him. Maybe they can. If I step in, they're having to ask themselves, can I take that person and this guy? And that is the question that, in my opinion, every bully should be asking themselves when they engage in this kind of shit in public, because we should all be taking care of ourselves. We should all be looking out for ourselves. And when somebody is going out in public and they're acting threatening, they're engaging in this kind of antisocial behavior, we need to be the ones that step up and protect us, because I'll tell you what, if you call the cops, half the time they aren't going to show up to that kind of thing. And if they do, it's going to be like hours sometimes after whatever has happened has happened. And at that point, somebody's already got their bones broke, somebody's already on the ground bleeding, and you didn't do anything. No one did anything. Very few people want to step up. And something else too is bystander effect. Think about this. The more people that are standing around, the less likely it is for any of them to act. Train yourself to act. That's part of it. Train yourself to have compassion for the people around you. See them as your brothers and sisters. Because they are. You're out there in the world as a human being, as a member of society, as a citizen here, and you have the capacity to act as a very special kind of citizen if you are trained to protect yourself and others. And it's worth taking advantage of that. It's a way that you can show compassion for those around you and model behavior that you would like to see in the world. Last one, getting into talking about compassion for your opponent. Now this one definitely sounds like it's a dichotomy, doesn't it? You're thinking in terms of very brutal takedowns in Wing Chun. Strikes to the throat, strikes to the eye, strikes to the groin, breaking somebody's knee, breaking somebody's arm, breaking ribs. How is that compassionate to the person you're doing it to? Well, I touched on this in my last video, but we understand that people have kind of an emotional maturity level, right? That emotional maturity level is oftentimes based off of how much somebody was forced to grow. So somebody who's sheltered, lives in the suburbs, never left their mom's basement, that person's probably going to have an emotional maturity that's kind of stunted if they stay that way until they're like 30. You're just going to be dealing with somebody who, can't handle disagreement. You're going to be dealing with somebody who can't handle violence. You can be dealing with somebody who can't handle some pretty basic shit. If they are a bully, that just never kind of grew out of that bully stage in high school, they're still thinking about this in terms of lunchroom, cafeteria bullshit, playground bullshit. They're going to want to come in and they're going to want to handle things the way that they've always handled things, which is to threaten people, make them feel intimidated, and to escalate things to the point where they're going to throw the first punch, and no one wants to deal with that, so they just go along with them. Well, if you got somebody like that coming at you, who you have tried to de-escalate the situation for, they have the intent, means, opportunity, and you've tried precluding that event, and it comes down to the point where you have the need to defend yourself. Doing so with your hands, as we do with Wing Chun, means that, this person may leave tonight without an eye. This person might leave tonight with a broken knee. They might leave tonight with a broken arm, strike to the throat. Most likely they're going to leave alive. Most likely. If they don't, maybe they shouldn't be attacking people. Just going to throw that out there. But most likely, you're going to do something to them that's going to put them down before it comes to that. Now, the thing is that learning that lesson with you is probably a lot better than them learning that lesson with, say, somebody with a gun in their jacket, or somebody with a knife in their pocket, or a cop. So maybe by being the person who puts them on the ground the one time that they need it, maybe you'll be the person to teach them a very valuable lesson about being a better person and showing a little bit more care and compassion to those around them. And maybe the fact that you can do it in the way that we practice to do it is going to mean that that event, though brutal and awful for them, is going to be maybe something that they think about. On that note, and I'm not going to get into this very much, but I have an injury that kind of bugs me once in a while, and it's a permanent injury. It's never going to go away. It's a nerve thing, and it came from me doing something irresponsible and stupid, and using violence where violence shouldn't have been needed. And I think about that every time I feel it. Every time I feel it, every time I get a remember that this happened, I have a little flash that reminds me of, how this happened. I'll tell you something. Since that event, I talk quieter. I have a lot more patience. I have a lot more understanding of where things can go. And I consider myself kind of fortunate that, I only have a very small injury that's related to that. And so where I'm coming from on this is from personal experience. I won't say that I'm, a terrible person, but I will say that I'm not a perfect person either. And, giving somebody to think about, giving somebody a little reminder of maybe why they shouldn't be doing what they're doing is sometimes a good thing. And you talk to somebody who injured themselves on farm equipment or on power tools or something like that, you'll encounter the same thing. They think about it. The next time that you're reaching towards that on button on the saw, you're going to be thinking about, oh yeah, there's that finger I had to get sewed back on. You're working with that farm equipment, you're thinking, yeah, there's that I won't even say, because some of the injuries that you can get in those situations are horrifying, but you get what I mean. You get those little reminders, and sometimes that's what it takes for somebody to grow as a person. And I think that that's a pretty compassionate way to look at it. So, all around, I think that the concepts of brutality and compassion can go together. And the way that the shorthand version of this that I always give people is that there's a reason why Chinese martial arts were developed by Buddhist monks. Maybe some other food for thought. So that's my little talk on compassion and brutality and how they can fit together. Hope you enjoyed.